Good afternoon, everyone. Ki onde da, de onde batsan. I hope it's a beautiful day wherever you are. Welcome to our webinar on how to conduct and submit your triennial child count. We are very excited to see all of you here today, and thank you so much for taking the time to join. Just going to go over a couple logistical things as we get started here. Just wanted to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded, and we invite you to submit any questions that you have as we go along in our presentation today. Please feel free to submit your questions in the chat box, and we'll be keeping an eye on the chat. And also wanting to invite everyone to say hello, and thank you to all of you who have started saying hello in the chat. And so with that, welcome, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I am Melody Redbird Post. I'm the project director of the Tribal Child Care Capacity Building Center. I come to you from the traditional and contemporary homelands of the Kiowa, Comanche, and Apache nations here in Southwest Oklahoma. And I'm very excited to be joined by our presenters. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lisa to say hello.
Thanks, Melody. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Blackman-Fergus, and I'm currently transitioning from Region 6 in Dallas to a central office position of Senior Tribal Child Care Specialist within central office. I'm certainly glad to continue on this journey with you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I'll turn it over to Sarah to say hello.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Stafford, and I am also a Senior Tribal Program Specialist, transitioning from my home in Region 10. I am joining you today from Tacoma, Washington, also the traditional and contemporary lands of the Puyallup tribal people. And thank you all for joining us today. And I'll hand this back over to Melody.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And we'll continue with our presenters for today's webinar. I'll turn it over to Nazba.
Sagoli, everybody. My name is Nazba Hill. I come from the Navajo and Oneida Nations. I come from the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk and Menominee Nations. I am the subject matter expert on subsidy administration for the Tribal Child Care Capacity Building Center. I'll pass it back to you, Melody.
Thanks, Nazba. And we'll continue. I'll turn it over to Melissa to say hello.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Pooch, and I'm from both, actually, the CARS TA team and NCDR, the Center on Data and Reporting. And I'll be talking about submitting things in the CARS system a little on today. So I'm happy to be here with you all.
Thank you, Melissa. And we'll turn it over to Eva to say hello.
Hi, everybody. So nice to have the opportunity to join today and share with you some really exciting news about the Tribal Early Learning Initiative. So I'm looking forward to telling you more. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Eva. We are so excited to share this important information with all of you. So we'll go ahead and get started. And so we just wanted to, for those of you who may have just logged in, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. And thank you to all of you who have already taken a moment to say hello and just let us know who's here today. We invite you to share your name, title, and the tribal CCDF program that you represent in the chat box. So thank you so much. It's awesome to see everyone. We appreciate that. So we'll go to the next slide. All right, so today in our webinar, we are going to provide an overview of the Triennial Child Count Declaration Program instruction from the Office of Child Care. And then we're going to talk about the guidance to complete the Triennial Child Count Declaration, preparation and submission. We're also going to share with you how to apply to participate in the Tribal Early Learning Initiative. We're very excited about that. And then we're going to review submission requirements to the CARS system, as Melissa just shared. And we'll also highlight some resources and tools for your reference. And so with that, to get us started, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Lisa.
Thank you, Melody. Do I have a better connection? Can you hear me a little better now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. As you'll notice on the screen, this is the program instruction that we're going to be referring to. It is also known as the PI. It will inform the tribes, tribal organizations, and tribal lead agencies of the process to submit the Triennial Child Count Declaration Form and Demonstration Letter, and for direct funded tribes, that is for those tribes who have not consolidated under a 102477. It also allows them to submit their definition of Indian reservation or service area and Indian child. In order for eligible tribes to receive CCDF funds, the tribes are required to submit every 3 years the information necessary to determine the number of children to be used in the funding formula, which is also referred to as the child count. The PI also provides instructions for submitting the Tribal Early Learning Initiative, or Telly, appendix along with the child count and service area information. We'll discuss that information from the program instruction throughout today's presentation, including additional information regarding the Telly opportunity. And if you need additional information on completing either your child count declaration form or the Telly appendix, please refer to this program instruction. We'll put the link in the chat box for easier access. Okay, I'm going to pause for one moment. Does it sound as if I have a better connection now, Melody?
It's a little bit better on my end.
Okay. Okay, I'll proceed, and if not, I'll attempt to call in. Okay. So in looking at the fiscal year 2023 to 2025 tribal CCDF plan, the submission of this plan has been extended for 6 months, as was shared in the OCC announcement. However, tribes must submit a triennial child count declaration by July 1st of 2022. And also, if you have an interest in an upcoming Tribal Early Learning Initiative opportunity by July 1st as part of the tribal CCDF plan process. All tribes who intend to receive CCDF funding, regardless of whether they currently receive CCDF funds, must submit the triennial count by July 1st of 2022. All tribes who intend to use the CCDF funding to support the Telly early childhood system building activities must also submit the Telly appendix by July 1st, 2022. In addition, all tribes who are interested in participation in the Telly collaborative must submit a statement of their interest in participation also to ACF by July 1st of 2022. We recognize that we are sharing a lot of information related to child counts, Telly opportunities, and please note that information will be shared and clarified throughout the presentation. And we, as always, we welcome you to share your questions in the chat box. And so for additional clarification, the triennial child count is a requirement for all tribes, including those who operate under a PL 102477 consolidated plan. while the Telly activities are optional and tribes will only submit the appendix and or interest in the collaborative if they're choosing to use CCDF funds to support the early childhood system building activities. As part of the child count submission, the definitions of Indian child, Indian reservation, or service area are required for tribes who receive their CCDF funding directly from ACF, since those definitions are linked in the triennial child count. Please note that the triennial child count form is Appendix 1 of the fiscal year 2023-2025 tribal plan preprint, and the definitions are in the appendix. And at this time, I will turn this over to Sarah. And again, my apologies for any technical or connection issues, and I will turn this over to Sarah.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. So next we're going to talk a little bit about 477 lead agencies. So tribal nations who have consolidated their CCDF program into an approved plan under the Indian Employment, Training, and Related Services Consolidation Act of 2017, also known as Public Law 102477, are required to submit a child count every 3 years in order to receive CCDF funds. And again, the submission due date is July 1st, 2022. Lead agencies who have an approved 477 plan are not required, though, to include their definition of Indian child and service area with the child count submission in Appendix A1A. Instead, those definitions are already submitted as a part of the 477 plan submission. However, we did want to clarify that the definitions submitted within the approved plan must be adhered to as you complete your child count process. So you'll want to make sure that your data sources align with your definition of Indian child within your 477 plan. And also, lead agencies under 477 may choose to use CCDF funds to support the early childhood system building activities through the Tribal Early Childhood Initiative, or Telly, by completing Appendix 2 in the fiscal year 23-25 tribal plan preprint. So a little bit about tribal consortia. So a tribal nation whose child count results in 50 children under the age of 13, or fewer rather, may participate in a consortium of eligible tribal nations, and to be eligible to receive CCDF funds on behalf of its member tribes. A consortium must consist of member tribes that meet the eligibility requirements for the CCDF program, or that would meet the eligibility requirements if the tribe had at least 50 children under age 13. The consortium lead agency must demonstrate that the member tribal nations has authorized the consortium to the consortium lead agency to act on its behalf. A demonstration for the consortium lead agency that shows that the member tribe has authorized the consortium lead agency to act on its behalf. And so examples of that demonstration could include a tribal resolution, a letter signed by the current tribal leader, or another official document from the tribe or village government. And they must demonstrate that the lead agency has the managerial, technical, and administrative staff with the ability to administer funds, manage a CCDF program, and comply with the provisions of CCDBG Act and regulations. So for any membership changes within a consortium, it is the responsibility of the consortium to notify ACF of any changes in its membership for CCDF funding purposes during the approved plan cycle. So If a tribe joins a tribal consortium to receive grant year 2023 funds, or if a current consortium member elects to not receive 2023 funds through that consortium, these changes must be conveyed to ACF in writing by the tribal consortium through a plan amendment. And there are special rules for Indian tribes in Alaska, which include tribal mandatory funds are only available for the Metlakatla Indian community of the Annette Islands Reserve and the 12 Alaska Native regional nonprofit corporations listed in Section 418 of the Social Security Act. The 13 authorized entities may receive tribal mandatory funds on behalf of Alaska Native villages in their region, and these Alaska Native villages may receive discretionary funds either directly or through one of the 13 authorized entities designated to receive tribal mandatory funds. And the 13 authorized entities must submit 2 child counts, one for discretionary and one for tribal mandatory. And now I will hand this over to Nazba.
Thank you. Okay, now that we have some background, let's talk about steps you need to take to conduct your child count. The child count is a self-certified declaration made by each tribal CCDF grantee to the Administration for Children and Families, or ACF. A tribal CCDF grantee's child count declaration certifies the number of Indian children under age 13 who meet their definition of Indian child and resides within the grantee service area. ACF will calculate grant awards, also known as CCDF allocations, based on a self-certified child count declaration for the number of children under age 13 who reside on or near the reservation or service area. Tribal CCDF grantees should also have written policies and procedures for conducting the child count that documents the methodology being used. The methodology could include process for requesting information, data sources being used, detailed calculation steps, methods to ensure non-duplicated counts, process for tribal certification, or submission procedures. Your documentation should be detailed enough that the steps are replicable and can be verified by an outsourced source. For an example, an auditor. The first step of a tribal lead agency should take in conducting a child count is determining their definitions of Indian child and Indian reservation or service area. These definitions are the foundation for the child count because they will determine which children need to be included in the child count. Once these definitions have been determined, the next step is to identify existing data sources that are available and submit requests for data as needed. Grantees will then use this information to determine their unduplicated child count and work with all other grantees, tribal CCDF grantees who have an overlapping or neighboring service area during this process. Finally, the tribal lead agency should ensure they have access to the CAR system prior to the July 1st deadline, complete the child count declaration form, and obtain an official signature from an individual authorized to act for the tribe. So that could be like a tribal chairman. Once complete, the information will be entered and certified within CARS. So now let's take a look at each of these steps in more detail. Step 1, define Indian child. Tribal lead agencies are required to provide a definition of Indian child in their child count declaration, and children must meet this definition to receive CCDF services. Tribes have flexibility in defining Indian child and may include children from other federally recognized tribes. There is a broad flexibility regarding how tribal CCDF grantees choose to define Indian child. Tribal CCDF grantees can choose to define Indian child as a child who is an enrolled member of the grantee's tribe. They can also choose to define Indian child more broadly as any child who has verifiable American Indian or Alaska Native ancestry as determined by either tribal enrollment, a certificate of Indian blood, or a birth certificate documenting lineal descent. The definition of Indian child can include children who are tribal members, whose membership is pending, who are eligible for membership, and who are children or descendants of members. This could also include children who do not have tribal ancestry, but who are adopted children, foster children, and stepchildren. Tribal CCDF grantees can also include children from other tribes in their definition of Indian child if the tribes are federally recognized. It is often the case that the tribal CCDF grantee's definition of Indian child will vary from the tribe's enrollment criteria. Step 2 is to define Indian reservation or service area. A tribal lead agency service area must be on or near the reservation and therefore must be within a reasonably close geographic proximity to the delineated borders of a tribe's reservation. With the exception of Alaska, California, and Oklahoma, tribes that do not have reservations must establish service areas within reasonable close geographic proximity to the area where the tribe's population resides. When determining a tribal lead agency service area, it's important to remember that there's an expectation that the tribal lead agency will be able to provide services to family throughout the service area. So it's important to consider that the area in which CCDF families reside, work, and are needing child care, the proximity of families to the tribally operated center, if that is the only type of care provided, the types of providers in the tribal lead agency uses, for example, relative care, center-based, in-home, and family care available throughout the proposed service area, the capacity of the tribal lead agency to monitor all providers within the service area to ensure the health and safety of children in care, and the use of state licensed providers in utilizing their monitoring practices and the ability to support quality care in all provider settings throughout the service area. ACF will not approve an entire state as a tribe service area. For example, if a service area based on proximity is too large to adequately meet the needs of children who are eligible for CCDF, a tribal lead agency may choose to reduce its service area size and only focus on the area where CCDF eligible families reside and work. Here's another example. If a service area is based on proximity and it does not include an area with a large population of CCDF eligible families, the tribal lead agency may choose to readjust its service area. After your definitions of Indian, reservation, or service area have been determined, the next step is to identify your data sources. There's no federal requirement for which data source a tribal lead agency can use. Tribal lead agencies can use federal, tribal, or local data to inform their child count. It's imperative that the data used to conduct the child count be both valid and reliable. A way to ensure program integrity and accountability is to document your steps, contacts, and resources in collecting the data with your internal policies and procedures. Okay, now let's take a moment to conduct a poll to see what common data sources are used to conduct a child counts. We are going to launch a poll. You can choose as many options within the poll as you use, since we know that sometimes more than one source is needed to accurately calculate the count. So some data sources include tribal enrollment data, Indian Health Service, hospital clinic, or special supplemental nutritional program for women, infant, and children, also known as WIC data, federal census data, school system data, Head Start and early Head Start data, tribal vital statistics and census data. We have child protection or Indian child welfare data, Bureau of Indian Affairs labor force reports data, state education or social service agency data, or you can check other. And if you did check other, please describe the source in the chat box. Okay, do we have results for the poll yet? All right, here are our results. It looks like the top source used is tribal enrollment data. And then the next one would be Indian Health Service, Hospital Clinic, or WIC data. Great, thank you everyone for participating in the poll activity. Now let's move on and talk about ensuring an unduplicated child count. Throughout the process of conducting your child count, it's important to ensure that you are not counting any child who's included in the count of another tribal lead agency. This is known as an unduplicated child count. To ensure unduplicated child counts, a tribal lead agency is required to confer with all other CCDF tribal lead agencies that have overlapping or neighboring service areas. The image on the screen displays how service areas can overlap. The darker shade area shows where they all come together. Coordination is another key step to keep in mind when you are planning. If you have any neighboring tribal lead agencies, or if you have an overlapping service area with another tribal lead agency, you'll want to make sure that you leave enough time to work together and confirm that your counts are not duplicated. Through coordination and upon receipt of data, it should be cross-referenced to ensure that there is no duplication of the count. This supports the accuracy and integrity of the data. Here is an example of the action steps you could take to address overlapping service areas in your child count process. You could identify tribal communities with overlapping service areas, identify tribal lead agency contacts from neighboring tribes, create a formal mechanism to confer with neighboring tribal lead agencies regarding overlapping service areas, and develop written policies and procedures to address the process for obtaining the child count and methodology from neighboring tribal lead agencies. If you are a tribal consortium lead agency, you will need to collect and submit an individual child count declaration form for each participating tribe. Then when you submit, you will need to include a total child count that is the sum of all the participating tribes' child counts. In terms of planning, it's important to allow enough time for the process of collecting individual child counts from each participating tribe. Make sure you reach out to the participating tribes and give them enough notice to complete and submit their individual child count declaration. If a consortium gains or loses one of its member organizations at any time, adjustments to the child count must be made accordingly. The triennial child count data should be collected between July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Child count data is due July 1st, 2022. During non-planned submission years, for example, fiscal year 2023 or fiscal year 2024, child count data may be changed only for the following reasons: new CCDF tribal applicant, or in the case of a tribal consortia, the consortia gains or loses one of its member organizations. I will now pass it over to Eva to talk about the Tribal Early Learning Initiative.
Thank you so much. So you've heard a little bit about it, at least the technical part of Telly, but I'm here to tell you a little bit more in depth about what this means. So thanks Sarah and Lisa for setting this up. This is a very exciting opportunity for me and all the rest of you folks who believe in partnerships and believe in systems and understand what a difference it can make when we pull all these resources together. So this is actually our third cohort of Telly. We've had 2 other ones and 8 tribes participated in those in the past. Those were all funded by small mini grants, but this one is funded by, it's all voluntary, obviously, but it's funded by CCDF funds and supplemental funds. We had a question that said, are those ARP funds? And I believe they are, but I would defer that to Sarah and Lisa to make sure. There is no additional funding. That's correct. This is all out of your CCDF quality money. And so that's how it's being funded this year. So as you've heard, this is a companion appendix to your child count, again, totally voluntary. And if you're interested in participating in it, it's an opportunity. So let me tell you more about it. It's an opportunity for all tribal early childhood partners, including childcare, Head Start, home visiting, and others, as well as, Indian Health Services, education, whoever is working with you and your families in the community, because we know there's a lot of duplication and lack of communication. So this opportunity leverages your increased CCDF funding to use their CCDF awards. So if we can go to the next one, there's a lot of information out right now, not only your appendix that we've been talking about, there's also information, an IM that's out that tells you a lot more about it and gives you ideas of things that you can, things that are allowable. So I encourage you to look at that. We'll see the link in the chat. And then I just will tell you a little bit more. There's 2 ways to participate in Telly. We have 2 separate, but pretty much very aligned, different ways that you can be a part of Telly. So the collaborative is really a very intense opportunity that we will select 8 tribes that want to use their CCDF funds to support Telly. And they'll be with us for 3 years. There'll be a lot of work in leadership and partnerships and just a lot of professional development that will go on among these teams. They'll have a good amount of TA and be part of a learning community. So it's an opportunity to really work with your peers and develop these systems in your local community. Or if you don't have time for that, or that's not what you're interested in right now, you can still be a part of the Telly network if you submit your appendix to say, yes, you'd like to be a part of it. And it's open to just any of the 264 tribes that are interested in joining us. It'll be, of course, more of a network, like the word says, and we'll share things between the network and the collaborative. So if the collaborative comes up with some really good tools, I don't know, community needs assessments or various things that they may develop as a core group, that will be shared with the network. So there are, a couple of different ways to do that. Okay, let's go to the next one. So we have a poll. And before we do the poll, let me just say that there are a lot of different things that you can do. And you'll see some of these in the memorandum and some of the other information that's out. But there's things like you could, if you pull all your partners together at your local community, you could hire a coordinator with your CCDF funds that would navigate all of this, pull the partners together and really keep the partnership going. You can do joint needs assessments, you can coordinate data, you can do joint professional development. Some folks in the last cohort developed a coordinated intake system, so it wouldn't be so hard on the families. A lot of them did joint family engagement. So if you want more information, my name will be on some of these documents that go out, and I'm really happy to talk to you about the different kinds of things that can be developed between your partners at your local community. So I don't know if that's enough information yet for you to make a decision. We have a lot more, obviously, but only so much time here. Telly stands for Tribal Early Learning Initiative. So if you think you've grasped it a little bit, you might be able to answer these poll questions. And there's some in there that you're not sure, various things like that, we'll be more than happy to talk with you individually. So we'll do this poll and see what happens. So can we get the results of the poll? Okay, a few of you are interested, are very interested. Some are still thinking about, can I do this? Do I have room on my plate to add something else? I'm interested in the network. I'm not sure if I have the capacity, and I'm not interested at all. Just like you're saying, is too much on your plate. So any more information you'd like, we have a lot of good stories from the people that have participated in the other two cohorts to tell you the kind of things that actually lightened the load on their plate by having other resources to help them really develop whatever is that their focus is. So if you would, leave your mind open, and let's go on to the next one, which will be my final one, to just give you a little outline here of the appendix. So you would complete the appendix and send it in by July 1st. You submit your information to CARS, and then there are two other documents that are out right now too, that I don't know if we have those links or not, but we can certainly get them. One is a statement of interest to work on to be a part of the collaborative, that you'll want to be that intense kind of, I believe it is a very elite group of folks. And then there's another one, to submit the state of commitment for the collaborative. Both of those have my name on them and my contact information. And you probably can tell I'm excited about this, and glad that we will have so much participation from CCDF. So thank you for this time, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Okay, I believe we are going to pass it over to Melissa.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Eva, for going over all of that. That was very informative. And for everybody that went before me, over the next couple of slides, I'm going to be reviewing what to do with all this information. So in other words, how do you submit this information to OCC? And I will quickly mention that before we really get started, I saw a question come into the Q&A. Someone was asking, when will the child count report be available on CARS? That is available now. We're very excited that it is. And over the next couple slides, I'll go over what that's going to look like as you enter information. So I'll be covering the introduction to the CARS system for those of you who are not familiar with it yet, what parts of the tribal plan you are going to see in the CARS system when you log in, when you're entering and certifying and submitting all of your data. I will briefly touch on how the federal review process is going to look like on your end in CARS, and we'll also make sure that you have resources that you need in case you have any questions after this presentation or if you come across any issues. Thank you. So CARS, the Child Care Automated Reporting System is what it stands for. And it is a new web-based data collection system that is being implemented in stages. So eventually the entire ACF 118 report, that is the entire CCDF plan, it will be in CARS. For now, the latest release is 1.3, and it currently allows you to enter the appendices that are associated with the plan. That is what we've been talking about today. So the child counts and the Tribal Early Learning Initiative that we're referring to as the Telly. I do want to note that CARS is not compatible with Internet Explorer. So OCC is recommending the use of either Chrome, Firefox, or Microsoft Edge browsers to access the system. Thank you. So there are 3 possible types of access of user roles for individuals that your program may have in the CARS system. The first is a lead agency user, and this is an individual who can enter data, edit, I said that twice, I apologize, enter, edit, or view lead agency data. If you are a lead agency certifier, you have all those same permissions, but you also have an additional one, which is that you are the one that is able to certify and submit information to OCC. You have a third possible role that you might select, and that is a lead agency view only role. That is for someone who can only view the data. This is an individual who cannot enter, edit any information. I want to note that there's a limit of 2 certifiers for each program. So generally a primary certifier and a backup in case of an emergency. When the roles are requested, the regional office will be taking a look and approving these roles in the CARS system. For the other user roles, there's no limits to the number of accounts you can have. You can have as many accounts as your program needs. So if you already have a CARS account, the screenshot here on this slide is going to look familiar to you. It is the login screen where you type in your username, you click next, and it takes you to the next page where you put in your password. Part of the login process includes using an MFA, a multi-factor authentication, with every time that you log in. This is used to confirm your identity and is necessary every time that you log into the system. So if it's been a while since you logged in and maybe you need some help with the process of logging in, we do have instructions here on the first page on resetting your password. We highlighted it here in the red box. It essentially just tells you to click on that disclaimer text that we put in the orange box. Once you click on there, those 2 options are going to appear right underneath. You can either click on the forget password or unlock your account, and that will walk you through how, as it says, to reset your password or unlocking your account. I'll also point out that all the way at the bottom, you may see where it says don't have an account, sign up. There's that sign up link in blue at the bottom. If you do not have an account yet, that is how you get that started. The accounts are not made automatically as you go through the process. Part of the process requires approval from the regional office. And if you have any issues while you're going through that process, you're free to contact us at the CARS TA team. I think our information is on the next slide. Yeah, there it is. Perfect. So we have our information here, our email address, our phone number. If your account is deactivated, which unfortunately does happen if you don't log in every 60 days, that is important. If you do not log in every 60 days, your account is deactivated. So please log in to prevent that. But sometimes it's unavoidable. And when it happens, do not panic. We are here to help you for that. So go ahead and give us a call or send us an email, and we can help you reactivate your account. You should receive an email that your account is deactivated, but if you happen not to see it, you'll pretty much know when your account is deactivated when it tells you that your password isn't working, and then maybe you try to reset your password and it's still not letting you do it. That's a good sign that your account is deactivated, and that's when I would recommend you reach out to us. So over the next couple of slides, I'm going to go over the submission process, as I mentioned. And in these slides, you're going to see screenshots of the CARS system. In advance, we just wanted to note that you're not going to be seeing any real data. All of this is fictitious, made up just for the point of demonstrating. We also wanted to point out that for 102, 477 tribes, CARS might look a little bit different for you. The differences are very small, very subtle. It's really just in the language. This is the first thing most tribes are going to see when they log in. And if you, you'll notice that there's two modules here. You have the ACF 700 report module and the 118A tribal child counts module. The modules that appear on the screen are going to depend on the type of access that you have. In this particular one, this is not for a 102 for 77 grantee because that first module looks a little different. If we could please go to the next slide. Perfect. So this is what it looks like if you are a 102 for 77 grantee about to enter the child counts. It'll say so in that module. I want to note that another difference from the previous screen is that there is no ACF 700 module here. 102 for 77 grantees are not required to complete that 700 report. So you most likely will not see that module there. And I see that there's a question that came into the chat. All that mine shows is the ACF 700 report. That can happen depending on how you initially created your account. What you can do is you can go to the admin module piece that's up at the top right-hand corner, and you can go through the process there of making a change to your account, and you can check off to get that additional module selected and added to your homepage. If you have any issues coming across that, just go ahead and give us a call or send us an email, and we're happy to walk you through that if you're not able to navigate on that, yourself through the site. There's a way to do it on the site. You're welcome. And I'll keep my eye on the chat as we go through. So if there's any more questions, please feel free. So when you are ready to enter your data on the child counts module, you would click on that little module piece, that chiclet, and it takes you to the screen here where you have a drop-down menu where you would select the reporting period. That takes you to the page right underneath where you are able to take all of the necessary actions. So you can select a place to enter your data in a particular section. So either the child counts or the Telly, the Tribal Early Learning Initiative. You're also able to run the AIR report or certify and submit your plan. So let's say you selected that chiclet where you can enter information. I apologize. I seem to be having some technical difficulties. Can you all still hear me okay? Just want to make sure and check in here because Zoom is doing something a little funky. Okay, great. I'll just keep going then. Hopefully, please let me know if I get cut off here. So we're talking about navigation and the plan locking feature. Let's say you selected that chiclet to enter your child counts. You'll see this screen here where you can enter all the information you have on that form. But then also in that red box, you see a little navigation piece that helps you navigate back and forth and sort of toggle between the tally and the child count, which is nice because you don't have to go all the way back out to the main page. So I personally think it's a nice feature anyway. So earlier we talked about, could we go back a slide, please? Thank you. So earlier I mentioned the different types of access and CARS that are available. And I want to go back to that for a second. There's nothing preventing multiple people from your program from accessing these forms at the same time. But not everyone is going to be able to edit a page at the same time because of a locking feature. So it really works on a first come, first serve basis. The first person to arrive at a particular page locks that page so that they're the only one that can make edits. When they leave the page, another person is then able to go into the page and make the edits. You don't have to worry about doing any locking or unlocking. It happens automatically. But I just wanted to let you all know, because if there's multiple people in the system and you're trying to make an edit and you can't seem to make it, you're not able to enter anything, that might be what's going on. There's somebody else in the plan already. And you can tell that because on the top upper right corner, here on this screenshot, you have that red text there. It says that it's locked by the tribal certifier. Thank you, right there. And that's how you'll know that you can't make any edits, because somebody else from your program is currently in the system working on that page. Thank you. So I'm going to go through the process of entering the child count declarations first as a non-consortium member, and then I'll go through it again quickly as a consortium member, because depending on which you are, it does look a little bit differently. So when you're ready to upload, well, let me start with the first question. The first question is a radio button. You just click yes or no. And it does ask you, is your tribal lead agency a consortium? So in this scenario here, as a non-consortium, you would select no. And underneath you have the rest of the form. So the next piece, it asks you to enter the number of Indian children under 13 in that text box. I'll note, and I believe it was Nesba that mentioned it already, but just to stress, since we're already on this page, when you're entering the number of children under 13 in this field, ACF is not going to accept any child count declarations that are based on counts that were conducted prior to July 1st, 2021. So please keep that in mind as you're typing the information in here. When you're ready to upload your declaration letter, you can click on that upload button there. A file explorer is going to appear with all the files on your computer. You can select what you want to upload. And I will let you know that CARS will not allow you to upload a Microsoft Word file. And if you forget that and try to upload one anyway, which I have done when I was testing, do not worry. The system will let you know. So the system will let you know and remind you that that is not an acceptable file format. You'll get a little red text letting you know. What is accepted is right underneath. It accepts the document types PDF, JPG, and depending on, you can go through and look through that and see what works best for your program. I imagine most people will probably use a PDF. So that's all listed on there when you're ready to submit. So going further down the form, you have these larger fields where you can enter information. This asks you to enter first the definition of an Indian child in that first box there with the arrow. Next, it asks you to enter the lead agency's definition of the reservation or the service area. Once you have finished with this piece, you have two options. You can click on the save button and you can stay on the same form, or you can click on the continue button, which saves it and moves you on to the next page, which is actually the Telly section. Perfect, thank you. So I'll go through one more time, as I mentioned earlier, how to enter the child count declarations, but this time from the point of view of a consortium member. So for that first question, you would select yes. And underneath, you would enter a date, the effective date of your child count. I believe you can type it in, or you can click on the little calendar there and just skip through and use the arrows to toggle back and forth and find that date that you need. Next, please. Thank you. So next, you need to confirm or make changes to the consortium members. And I say confirm because some of this data will already be there. This is going to pre-populate with members from the previous plan cycle. So if maybe you don't need to make any changes, in which case you would just continue filling out those sections. But if you do need to make changes, it's fairly simple. You would click on that blue Add Consortium Member button, and you will see a drop-down list, and you can use those to find the member that you would like to add. If maybe you have someone listed there from the previous plan cycle that you may need to delete. And if that's the case, we have a little screenshot here for that as well. You would just go all the way across the columns. The last column there is a delete. So you would click on that little red X. I believe it gives you like a little confirmation, like, are you sure you want to do this? And you would click yes, and that's how you would delete a member. So you're able to make some changes there as needed. For the purposes of time, I'm going to keep going in the presentation, but I do see quite a few questions going back and forth. I want to mention, and I'll mention it again later on, but we do have some office hours coming up, and we will make sure to send you that information so you can hop on and join us if you have more questions about the CAR system and how that works. But for now, we are continuing down the child count declaration. So again, for consortium lead agencies, you have two fields where you can enter one, the mandatory child count, and then another field with the discretionary child count that you would enter. You also have the ability to upload the declaration letter and the demonstration letter. And similar to what I mentioned before, the Microsoft Word is not a accepted file type, but it does tell you what is accepted right underneath there. And it does accept PDF, which I think is probably the most popular. Once you are finished making changes or upload whatever you need to make here, you can click on the save button and it will save your information, or you could click on the continue button to save and move to the Telly. Perfect, thank you. Actually, I think I may have misspoken earlier. So further down, we have these two additional questions that are similar to, as I went through before for the non-consortium members. It's the same two questions. You would enter the definition of an Indian child in the field, and then also a definition for the reservation or service area. And then you can either save or click the continue button. And I do have a space here for Q&A. I'm going to take a quick look. I don't see it in the Q&A box, but maybe in the chat. I apologize. I'm trying to find the beginning. How do we find out what your username is? Your username is your email. And I see Rosa answered that. I'm sorry. Let me see. Is there anything that hasn't been answered? I think Rosa Williams, our lead TA, has been answering questions. So thank you, Rosa. We'll just move on from now. Rosa looks like she's answering some questions in the chat as they come in, and we'll move on for now for purposes of time. Thank you. So for the Telly section, and how do you enter this information into CARS? Eva's already talked about it, but just as a reminder, it is a voluntary effort that grantees are not required to participate in. So if you are not interested in this effort, then in terms of entering it into CARS, it's fairly simple. You would just select no with the radio button and save that. And that's really the end of that particular section for you if the answer is no. If the answer is yes, you would go ahead and click that on the radio button. And thank you very much. You have additional questions that pop up, and that's what you're seeing here on the screen. So you would respond to each one of the questions that appear. Once you click the radio button, the site is very responsive. So you'll see additional questions that come up, and you are able to use checkboxes to select things that are appropriate. And then that will open, maybe depending on the box, additional text boxes where you can enter information. And we have that save button at the bottom to save your changes. Thank you. So in the process of entering your data, let's say it's happening over several days, maybe you're going back and forth, or you have multiple users that are doing that. If you want to see the overall status of this information that's being entered, you do have something called an error report that is going to give you sort of a synopsis of all the sections. So you can see what has been not started, what has maybe been completed already with no errors, or if there are errors, it will let you know. But if we can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. So this is what the error report looks like when there are no errors and both sections are fully completed. And I do want to note that this is what the error report has to look like for a certifier to be able to certify and submit this information. So if there's errors that the CAR system is recognizing, the certifier will not be able to submit this. So if you're maybe a little confused, why can't I submit this? Go ahead and click on the error report button, and that'll maybe take you to the section that needs some revision. Perfect. So another thing you could do to take a look to make sure the sections are completed is the little check marks that are in the little chiclets. If when you see that check mark, you know that that section is completed. And when it is a circle, you know that section has not been completed. And right underneath, you see the run error ability and the submit the child count and the Telly feature there. And just as a reminder, that's something that only your tribal certifier is going to be able to do. Your certifier and whoever is designated as a backup. So as a reminder, you can only have 2 roles for that. So when you, or I should say, when the certifier is ready to submit this information, they would get to this screen after clicking on that certify box there before. You would click to the checkbox to acknowledge 2 things. First, that the child count and the Telly are meeting the required assurances and the certifications. And 2, that you have the authority on behalf of the lead agency to submit this information. So in other words, that you are the designated certifier. So the certify and submit button is going to be grayed out until the box is checked. So you do have to check that first before you are able to certify and submit. And once you do, you get a little confirmation message here saying you're certifying and submitting. Would you like to proceed? You would click yes to continue. Once you click yes, you can't make any additional changes unless it is returned by the regional office for edits. If you click no, you do not submit it. So that's when you are able to, as a lead agency, to make additional changes. So let's say you clicked yes, and you did submit this information. The next step is a federal review process. After lead agencies submit the appendices, it's up to them now to look over it. And if any updates are needed, the regional office will be able to return the appendices back to you with comments. And if that happens, then you will receive an automated notification from the CAR system letting you know that revisions need to be made. And here's just an example of one of those emails that we put on here from our testing. But you would get something like this, again, an automated message, and it lets you know it's been returned to you. And there's a little comment section there, and it'll give you a little tidbit, some information there from the regional office. So after you do receive that email, next step would be for you to access CARS and take a look at the external comments that detail all of the required changes from the regional office. After you make all those appropriate changes, that's when the certifier is able to resubmit the appendices. For tribal lead agencies that have not have selected not to participate in the Telly process, if you click on that no button, the Telly is actually going to automatically be accepted, and it doesn't go through any kind of review process. So just in case you were wondering what's happening with that, once you click no, that's not something you have to worry about. Let's see. So we have a Q&A piece here, and I don't believe anyone can unmute. I'm going to take a quick look at the chat, see if there's anything pressing. Some links are being shared. Thank you very much. There's a couple questions I'm going to leave for now because I think those are more programmatic. I can't quite answer them myself. If we can go to the next slide, please, and one more. These are our office hours that our center has upcoming. We're offering 2 1-hour sessions every week in June. So you have plenty of opportunity to just drop by and ask us any specific questions you have about the CAR system, how it works, submitting your information. We have the link here up on the screen, but we're also going to be sending that out separately. And we have our email address, our phone number. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't think there's much else to say on that slide. Again, we'll make sure to send out that information for everybody. If you are in the CAR system and you're looking for additional resources, up at the very top, there's that resources tab that you can click on. And that leads you to a place where you can find some one-pagers, some smaller user guides. And again, our information is here, and we are all smiling in these pictures because we're happy to help. So feel free to contact us for any questions. And that is the end of my section here. And notice Rosa did add in the chat box, look for an email from us with the dates, time of our office hours and the Zoom link. So you can keep an eye out for that. And I will give the presentation back to Melody, I believe. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you everyone for your questions. And thank you, Rosa, for sharing as Melissa was presenting. So I do see that there are a lot of questions in the chat. So I just wanted to say that our presenters have been keeping an eye on the questions that are coming in, and some of the questions do require some follow-up. So we will go ahead and make sure that we can connect you with your regional office. So we encourage you to reach out to your Office of Child Care regional program specialist with specific questions to get some guidance from your program specialist for many of the questions that we see that are kind of more of the programmatic piece. And we can also share some additional information and resources with the regional offices to share from your program specialist as well. So we will do our best to make sure we follow up with you and connect you with your program specialist to be able to get your questions answered. And if you know who your program specialist is, we encourage you to reach out and ask your question. So let's see, there's a lot of questions in the chat. I'm going to see, make sure we're getting to those. Just want to mention for those of you who have been looking at the chat, as Melissa was talking, we put the links for the office hours that will be happening that Melissa mentioned. So those links are in the chat. And they will also, all of this information will be sent out in a follow-up email. So be on the lookout for a follow-up email from this webinar, as well as look out for an email from NCDR with the days and times for the office hours that Melissa mentioned, as well as the Zoom links. So just wanted to make sure we mention that. We wanted to highlight a couple of resources that are available or will be available to you very soon. So the first resource is focusing on the conducting triennial child count for your tribal CCDF plan. So this focuses on the information that NASBA shared in the beginning of the webinar. And we wanted to highlight this one pager that will be posted on the Tribal Child Care Capacity Building Center website on the Office of Child Care TA page. And we will send the links out as soon as they're available, and we'll be sending those out in a follow-up email. So be on the lookout for that. They will also be available on the website. So let's go to the next resource. We want to spotlight that there will also be a checklist available to you. This is called Getting Ready for Your Child Care Development Fund Triennial Tribal Child Count. Just a checklist for those of you who may be new to the child count process. This is a way to kind of keep track of all the information as you go through the different steps within your tribal lead agency. And again, this checklist will be posted on the website as well. So be on the lookout for links to be available very soon, and we'll get those sent out in a follow-up email also. The next resource we want to highlight is the Child Count Declaration for CCDF Tribal Lead Agencies Frequently Asked Questions Brief. This is a brief that highlights some of the questions that we hear from tribal lead agencies around the child count declaration process, and how you can prepare for submitting your child count. And so this will also be posted on the website. So be on the lookout for the link to this as well. So as always, just wanted to share that the Office of Child Care regional offices, your regional program specialists, and our team here at the Tribal Child Care Capacity Building Center, along with all of the OCC technical assistance partners, we are available to support you through this process. And we look forward to supporting you with the questions. I know that many of you probably still have questions, so we look forward to following up with you and encourage you in the meantime to reach out to your program specialists so we can start the process of following up and getting your questions answered. So we are here to support you, and just let us know what we can do to continue to assist. And I see we have a question in the chat from Natani of how soon we'll be able to find these resources. So these resources, we are in the process of posting those online as we speak. So very soon, within the next week. So we are hoping they will be soon available within the next few days even. So we'll be sending all of that information out via a follow-up email. So if you're here on the webinar and you registered for this webinar, you'll be able to get a link to the recording of the webinar, because I know some of you have mentioned that you weren't able to join for the whole time. Don't worry, we'll get the recording link sent out to you, as well as a link to all of the resources that all of our presenters mentioned. So with that, we really appreciate all of you joining and really appreciate all of your questions coming in. And we look forward to continuing to support you through this process as you prepare all of the documents and really think about the decisions that you're making on behalf of your tribal lead agency. And so with that, that concludes our webinar presentation for today. And we just wanted to say again, thank you so much to all of you for taking the time to join. And we look forward to connecting with you through your regional office and through our follow-up conversations. And we appreciate you taking the time. So we hope that all of you have a wonderful rest of your day, your afternoon, and look forward to supporting you in the future. So Aho de Batha, thank you so much for joining, and have a great day.